Hello and welcome to Bite Size, proudly brought to you by Priestley's Gourmet Delights. I'm your host, Xanny Christophersen, and each episode I sit down with a guest to chat through their business insights, their thoughts on the food service industry, and everything else in between. Today I was joined by Anthony Ryan, the CEO of Brisbane Economic Development Agency, also known as BEDA. In this episode, we unpack Brisbane's remarkable growth story and where the city is headed as we move closer to the 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games. We also dive into Brisbane's world-class hospitality industry. It's a fascinating conversation and offers a great look at what's ahead for Brisbane over the next decade. Welcome, Anthony. We're super excited to have you on Bite Size today.
It's great to be here, Xanny.
So let's start with you. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Xanny, I've had a bit of an eclectic career. I started out as a teacher, working in Catholic schools actually, and ended up becoming a deputy, and then decided that I was really interested in the social enterprise world, and so I started a couple of not-for-profits. In particular, the one I'm most proud of is started up what was called the Edmund Rice Foundation. And that became an international aid organisation working in about 9 countries. And it took me all around the world, working in some of the most extraordinary places and probably some of the toughest and poorest places in the world, and setting up schools, education programs, advocacy programs. And then during that time, I then got a phone call to head up a not-for-profit called Young Care, which really was set up by 4 of my mates, and was all about getting young people who had high care disability that were living in nursing homes and aged care all around Australia, living in misery. And Young Care's purpose was to identify these people, get them out of the nursing homes and aged care, and getting them to places where they could live young lives and live with liberation, etc. And it was very, very satisfying. I'm driven by purpose. And then the work that I did there, which made that charity Fair Level Social Justice place pretty successful, I was invited to apply for the Brisbane Economic Development Agency CEO role, which I currently have. And I think I've now got the best job in Brisbane.
I reckon you do too.
Yeah, it's a great job.
Yeah. And so why the jump away from not-for-profit into BEDA? What attracted you there?
I get asked that all the time. And as you know, I wear my heart on my sleeve. So at times in this podcast, I might get a bit emotional, but don't feel awkward. It's just me. It was hard because I was dealing with people. What gave me a spring in my step every morning when I was at Young Care or when I was at Edmund Rice is if you had a good day in those businesses, it meant that you were actually literally saving lives or freeing lives and changing families and giving them hope. And then, so it was difficult to leave. But when I got asked that exact question, when I was in a very tough interview process, there was 7 people sitting around a boardroom table firing questions at me. And that was the one that was the hardest. But then it just came naturally. And I said, well, I've been driven with purpose. I've loved changing lives and providing opportunities. When we ever get the opportunity to change millions of lives in a city? And that was my answer.
Yeah.
And I feel as if BEDA's job, Brisbane Economic Development Agency's job, is to actually lift the perspective and change the brand of a city. And as you do that, everyone's lives gets impacted positively.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think over the last 5 years, we've certainly seen that in Brisbane. It's not just the most livable city, but it's also one of the best cities in the world to live in.
Yeah, like yesterday, we were blown away. I spent a lot of time on radio yesterday because the visitor economy figures were shared.
Oh, wow.
So hot off the press, we've gone over the last 5 years from $11 billion visitor economy alone to a $17.8 billion. And in the last year alone, international visitation has increased by 43%.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now with all the precincts around Brisbane, we're having a chat before about Howard Smith's Wharves. People from the south are actually coming to Brisbane, to experience, what's on offer at James Street. You've got some amazing hotels there. And then
James
also
Street's the new black.
Is it?
Apparently, yeah. And that's to all the cool people in Sydney. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm not cool enough to hang out there. But, you've got precincts like Howard Smith Wharves, which is just killing it for Brisbane.
Yeah. So they, one of the things that I've discovered over the last couple of years is economic development literally is, it's a team sport, and it's literally also, I always imagine it's a Rubik's Cube, which I could never work out when I was younger, but it's about just aligning up the pieces. So Howard Smith Wharves as an example, South Bank as an example, James Street as an example, they're important for a number of reasons. They're incredible precincts where the strategic thinking that's gone around it, the diverse offerings that they all provide our city, extraordinary. But it's also important for people such as yourself, like in your generation. What we're trying to do is capture people from all around the world. Yeah, those talented people that are sitting in Singapore going, I want to advance my career. I want to actually do something different. I'm ambitious. They never would have looked to Brisbane. They always would have looked down south, down to Sydney and Melbourne. Now we're actually getting a migration of people. A lot of the thinkers, a lot of the successful people coming out of Sydney and Melbourne are actually saying the 2032 highway is very appealing. I can actually see myself making my name in this city, and I'm coming. And so we're getting it from internationally and interstate. And it's the precincts are so important to that because they want to be able to go, I want a career, but I also want to know what I'm going to do on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we're also starting to see corporates start to invest in Brisbane as well. So they're not, in the past, they typically invest in Sydney and Melbourne.
Absolutely. There's an announcement this morning that has just been talked about with the Visi site. Lendlease have talked about it's just been released hot off the press again. A multi-billion-dollar site has just been set up at Visi over at South Bank, over near West End, along with the Parmalat site. That's going to transform once again the city. So you've got Dexus Waterfront happening on Eagle Street. You've had Queen's Wharf finished now. Howard Smith Wharves has just announced a $500 million development. These developments are happening at great knots, and it's because the brand of Brisbane has completely changed.
We see that Brisbane's population is projected to grow by 43% by 2040.
You've read the State of the City.
We might have. Don't tell us, don't let all of our secrets go out there. But yeah, tell us what needs to happen now to be able to support that growth, because that's huge. And tell me there's not going to be more traffic.
So 43%, I can't talk to you about the traffic. How I can talk to you, and I'll explain a little bit about the thinking that's going behind that. 43% is true by up to about 2041. So we did a 20-year study in that population growth. And more importantly, you don't want population growth happening when there's stagnant economic growth. Our modelling has got Brisbane's economic growth at the same time as the population growth being the highest in Australia. So as a capital, over a long period of time, we're definitely going to have high growth. And I'll talk about the issues that might happen as a result of that. But what we've decided from an economic development agency perspective is, I was sitting back probably about 4 years, really genuinely pondering how we're going to handle this growth. And Brisbane's superpower, and I say this quite a lot in keynotes, is our collaboration, our collaborative spirit. We drop our egos, and we've now decided how we can supercharge the economy by working together. So, for instance, BEDA's put together a group called the Better Brisbane Alliance, and on that alliance, what I think are some of the best decision makers in Queensland, but they are focused here in southeast Queensland, in Brisbane. And that's a group that has decided that they will work together. They'll drop their competition at the door. And when they walk into the alliance, and you'll never see us on LinkedIn, you'll never see it on any sort of socials. It's 24 people coming together, deciding what to do and how to hunt as a pack for the city. And they're I have no qualms about the growth that we got, because I know the thinking that's going behind those closed doors. And as a result of the things that you've just named, even at the beginning of this podcast, they've all emerged out of that alliance, just how we actually work and leverage those key moments and key growth areas.
Yeah. And what do you think about what needs to happen now to support the growth?
Well, look, you mentioned transport. Transport is absolutely vital. So we've got to continue the growth of the metro. The Cross River Rail is absolutely important. And the things that you're hearing from both local government and state government, so Adrian Schrinner, our Lord Mayor, the Premier, I believe what they are doing and taking on BPIC, CFMEU, absolutely vital. So what we found is, you know, um, we need to accelerate and catch up with, and honor the growth that's happening. So we need to build that infrastructure. We can't do it with low productivity. So the productivity focus that you're currently seeing right now is vital. Queen's Wharf was built on 2.7 days productivity.
And what's the expected?
5 days.
Oh,
You're paying for
oh,
someone 5 days a week.
wow. That's really
Was built
low.
on 2.7 days productivity, approximately. So I truly believe we start winning that battle, and all of a sudden you'll start seeing what is in the pipeline and what is our capacity. It'll actually change, because once you change productivity, they start meeting each other.
It's the same in manufacturing.
Absolutely.
Exactly the same in manufacturing. So we've spoken really, how you guys are doing an amazing job pulling people together to get a think tank started, domestically and very much locally within Brisbane. How does BEDA shape the global perception of Brisbane? I might just throw some stats out there because I've heard the Lord Mayor speak recently and I was gobsmacked. So you'll be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe at the moment, visibility of Brisbane across the world is 3%.
Was 3%.
Was, okay.
About 2 years ago.
By LA, it's going to be 45%. Have I got that stat? What is it?
So what has happened? We were actually involved in this study. So BEDA worked in this study alongside 2032 Organising Committee, and what in a survey that went round to key parts of the world, 3% of the world about 2 years ago knew where Brisbane was. Less than 3% knew something significant about Brisbane. By the time LA happens, and this is an acceleration of brand, which we're really excited about, and that's why that $17.8 billion figure that I mentioned before is happening, and it's being realised, is that the lead up to 2032, 28, the Lord Mayor Adrian Schrinner is going to get that relay baton basically handed to him by his counterpart in LA. We'll be sitting anywhere between 45 to 55% brand awareness at that stage. And by the time we do the opening ceremony, we'll be sitting anywhere between 87 to 93%. Yeah. Why that number is really important is those cities that have a brand anywhere above 85%, I'm talking Singapore, LA, London, Shanghai, New York, some of the great cities of the world, and we will have that same brand awareness, but it comes with a pain. Also, Rio de Janeiro had the same sort of awareness as a result of the Olympics, but it was for the wrong reasons. So brand can be great or it can be terrible.
Like in business?
That's it. So our job is, as the world starts hearing and knowing about Brisbane, is that it's the importance of people such as yourself, the young people coming through, ambitious. That brand that we build together is going to be so important. We don't want a brand which is inefficiency, laziness, lack of collaboration. As people come here, we want them to feel innovation, tech. We want them to feel a warm welcome, which we're well known for. But we also want to know that they're coming to a city that is continuing to strive forward in growth and collaborating together, and really creating these innovation hubs, which are going to be so important to the way we're also seeing.
Yeah, amazing. So what I'm hearing is invest in Brisbane.
Absolutely. Well, it's happening right now. So BEDA's never been more busy. Like literally, we're getting phone calls on a daily basis now. Actually, I'll give you a great example. We have recently been in Dubai as a part of the Asia Pacific City Summit. I went to Dubai 4 years previous to that. It was horrendously difficult. No one wanted to meet with me. No one wanted to know anything about Brisbane. We weren't on the map. This year, last year when we went as part of the Asia Pacific City Summit, in such a short period of time, we had actually people fighting to meet with us. I had to say to my team, choose the best, because we couldn't fit all those meetings, and that changed in 3 years.
Yeah, right. Well, let's turn to the most exciting upcoming event for Brisbane 2032, the Olympics and the Paralympic Games. How do you think Brisbane's going to feel in 2032 compared to where we're at
Well, I'm going
today?
to argue for the first time. I know that's dangerous argument, Zay, but
Go on.
I think let's look forward, a little bit forward to that.
Yeah, go on.
So I'll give you an idea of next year. So, we've locked in Magic Round for another 6 years to 2032. We've locked in the 2027 Rugby World Cup, and there's going to be 10 games here in the city. And then we've locked in concerts, which we can't announce yet. We've locked in a couple of other big major events. What you're going to start seeing now, the new Brisbane, well, actually not the new, Brisbane as it is right now is a completely different space as it was 4 or 5 years ago. You're going to start seeing how tech and innovation are going to start changing things. So by the time you get to 2032, you'll almost have a seamless way of moving through an airport to your taxi, into your hotel, into a stadium, where you don't even have to take your phone out of your pocket. You actually just pretty much walk everywhere. That actually, I met with one of the heads of security yesterday. They're the sort of things that are coming all the time. Like, we had a crazy meeting thinking, why am I meeting with this guy? But then when he sat down, he said, I provide around about 25% of the security guards you see around events spaces in Australia right now. And he's talking about how to make the training for security guards around stadiums more seamless. Because in Paris, they had about 50 to 60,000 security guards. Currently, we've got about 25,000 to 30,000. And if we're going to start training them, we've got to make it simpler and more appealing to get that workforce happening in our spaces.
Yeah, and fair enough as well. I know, just my own experience with Brisbane Airport. Right now it's so much better. Like, yes, there's still more development work that's happening.
Gert Yarn's done a great job, and Gert and his team, who sits on the Alliance, by the way, we going back to the Alliance, we put all the major thinkers. So Gert Yarn sits on there from the airport. Neil Stevens from the Port of Brisbane sits on there as well. And so that precinct is also vital to the success of Brisbane. 20 minutes from the CBD, we've got an airport that's is currently doing a $5.1 billion infrastructure upgrade. And the Port of Brisbane, the cruise terminal there is truly world class. And we are now, but more importantly, the Port of Brisbane and through Precincts Gourmet Delights, as you start becoming a major exporter and starting to look at that sort of world, that Port of Brisbane is the most efficient port at the moment, cost-effective port in Australia on the eastern coast. So we need to start saying that to the world. Don't go to Sydney, Melbourne to do your exporting, importing. We actually have the most efficient, most cost-effective, but more importantly, the closest to the Asia Pacific market. And we need to sell that as one of our competitive edges.
2032 presents lots of opportunities, but, what are you thinking more broadly for Queensland businesses and the hospitality and tourism industries?
Well, as I'm sitting opposite you, I'd say this really genuinely. I think the opportunity for someone such as yourself, just extraordinary. I had the privilege of being invited to Paris for the Olympics, and as an observer, just to have a look at it. And it was about $2.5 billion were created just for the Olympics, just for supply contractors.
Yeah.
Around about 83 to 85% of those supply contractors in Paris were French, locals. If you follow that, and it's going to be, even if you just look at CPI, etc., the supply contract world here in Australia will be well over 3 billion. If you follow that, and I know that there's great people like Heidi Keeper from Business Chamber Queensland, champions of small business like Steve Minikin, the work that the Lord Mayor and Adrian and his team are doing, we'll follow that, about 80 to 85%. So if you're hitting that, that's $2.2 $2.3 billion of work that's going to be available. And it all went to small business. It didn't go to the big multinationals in Paris, and it won't go to the big multinationals here in Brisbane. Um, if you're competitive, if you're smart, if you're strategic, if you're starting to build relationships now, if you're starting to get Olympic ready in your businesses, and it's pretty simple. You just get on the website and go, how do I get Olympic ready? And they'll tell you the things you need to do with security, tells you what you need to do with your tech, etc., to make sure that you're not a risk.
Yeah.
There are immense opportunities.
How many people are expected to, like, what's the visitor? Because there must be, growth in visitors. So, and I'm sure that you've mapped it. So what does it look like?
But we're still working on that. What we know, we'll start from a media component. 5 billion eyes or more are going to be on Brisbane on that opening ceremony. And if the Olympics does what it's supposed to do, where it creates next year's champions, the future champions. So will Gout, will he produce in that 200 metres? Will Lockie Kennedy, a local 100-metre runner already running sub-10, produce there? If that happens and you've got those local champions made, it will go to 6 billion to 6.5 billion people watching the Olympics. It's going to be extraordinary. What that does is changes the way that people leading into the Olympics will come here. But quite literally, you'll have millions of people coming into Brisbane. So it won't just be Brisbane alone. It's going to be Southeast Queensland. We're going to need every hotel at the Gold Coast, every hotel at Sunshine Coast. Moreton Bay is going to be filled with cruise ships.
Yeah, well, I know the work that I've done with the state government is really about how they're building out hubs down the southeast coast, yeah, of Australia, which is, exciting for everyone because it means there's opportunities everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I was you, I'd be the biggest way to leverage this opportunity now is getting out of your office, getting out of your factory, getting out of whatever you're doing and starting to build the relationships with the decision makers. If anything, I say to my team at BEDA, do not, and this is, I don't mean this in any arrogant way. You do what you can with what you got, but you've got to get to decision makers. And if you're talking and building relationships and decision makers get to know who you are, then you've got an opportunity to really leverage that moment.
Yeah, totally agree. And I guess the most important question today, what are you most excited to watch in Brisbane 2032?
32. Well, hopefully it's going to be my son.
Oh, really?
My son's just started training for the 400 meters. And
Oh, wow.
So he's after 6 months, he made the semis at the Australian Open Champs this year. And he trains with a couple of the Olympians right now. And at the moment, he's just there. He's their training partner, which they sort of push around a little bit. But after 6 months, he's saying good progress. To be honest, though, I'm a 400-meter runner, ex-400-meter runner myself, and I can't wait to see the 400-meter final. I'll be front row, hopefully.
Naturally.
I'll be retired. I'll be retired by that stage, and I'll just be watching in the grandstand. And I bought my ticket, and I can't wait to see that. And the swimming. I love the swimming.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I'm a 400-meter walker. But I agree, running or swimming is always, good to watch. Let's move on to the food scene, because I think what I've noticed, and I'm a massive foodie, is that Brisbane has evolved significantly. So, I always used to travel down to Sydney, Melbourne to have my food experiences, but Brisbane's up there with the best.
Yeah, that's probably changed quickly as well. What we found since COVID, particularly some of the really extraordinary chefs out of Melbourne, they came up to Brisbane for a lifestyle change. And so if you look at Supernormal as an example, Supernormal came up here. They're a Melbourne institution. They've arrived here in Brisbane. Last year were named in the top 50 new restaurants in the world. Like not Australia, in the world. Agnes, in that same year, was named as the #1 restaurant in Australia. And if you get what I think is really exciting, if you look at all our precincts, so if you go from Fish Lane, James Street, Howard Smith Wharves, anything along those lines, South Bank, the other end, where you're starting to look where Otto is, etc. I'm a big fan of Neldham House. Anything on that river at the moment is starting to become not Australian class. I actually call it Brisbane class. But it's true. Like Brisbane doesn't need to be anyone else. We actually have now created a food scene, and if there's anything in the food industry that's listening right now, I'm putting out a challenge. I want us to own the bug. So if I've just recently been overseas, and cities actually claim, so if you go to San Francisco, the soft shell crab is something you have to have. I think anyone that's now coming to Brisbane, as we're getting that accelerated thing, we need to own the Moreton Bay bug. That we should be famous for that, and we haven't. And it's such a simple thing, But if you come to Brisbane, and I said this to we had 3 nights ago, we had a group of MBA leaders have come out, and now the MBA is finished. They're now looking in Brisbane for high performance, and so we had a couple of the leading universities, the MBA and the NFL, come out, and we had to present to them about, what we think um, they should be looking at in Brisbane. There's about 50 of them. And we said, own the bug, okay, go out and have the Moreton Bay bug, etc. But they started talking themselves about how it's our winter. They laughed and said, is this your winter? And this is your, and that they're the sort of things that we just need to start changing the way people think about
Yeah,
us.
because I guess, in the rest of the world, it's cold for literally 6 months. And what do we have? Maybe 2 weeks of the year. I mean, I'm freezing at the moment, but
My
that
wife
tells
was in Ugg boots this morning. I just laughed at her.
my aircon was on 26 degrees, so it was balmy in my house. But we spoke about Agnes Restaurant, and I think Ben Williamson and his team has done an incredible job there. And he's quoted, "We're not looking to do a carbon copy of Sydney and Melbourne." So how do you think that Brisbane's starting to rival or even surpass those cities as a foodie destination?
Um, I think quiet confidence is what I often use humility, and some people get um, uh, say don't say humility because sometimes humility can mean weakness. So I'm changing my thinking. I think it's quiet confidence in what we do. We don't need to be anyone else. Like if you look at what we are now offering in the restaurants and cafes, our cafe culture is extraordinary. Um, and the if you also look around what Brisbane's advantage is, we have a 360-degree world-class food bowl. If you start thinking what's coming out of Scenic Rim right now and the opportunities that exist there, and then you match that with the fact that we've now got the most efficient port, you know, the produce that's starting to be created around Brisbane right now is really exciting. And so our Brisbane restaurants need to really hone in on that and go, we've got one of the best food bowls in the world,
Yes.
and that's what's producing our restaurants.
Yeah, and you've started to see it as well. So, I think about the Scenic Rim, and how many amazing local producers are down there, but you're also seeing some amazing restaurants open down there,
Absolutely.
that are incredibly hard to get into.
Yeah, if you look at Bank and et cetera, out of Boona, like I go out there a couple of times just to learn and just to meet some of the producers. And I know you recently just did the Future Food Accelerator program into Singapore. What we're trying to do there is a little bit like what we did with MedTech as well. We've got these people that don't understand the power of their genius, and we've got to make them more commercially minded, etc. So the whole idea of what BEDA's doing in accelerator programs is allowing people to create a sense of family around that industry, so they get to know each other, learn off each other, but then have more confidence in what they're doing, but also then teach them how they can actually get access to potentially a large market. You got some real leaders in there like Australian Country Choice right now are so good at what they're doing with exporting beef. You guys are really starting to step up into the plate. And then you've got others that are actually who are just learning the trade. But I think you'll see that in the state of the city, advanced manufacturing is, we've identified that as one of our true growth industries over the next 10 years. We'll be in anywhere between 30 to 40% of growth in advanced manufacturing alone.
Yeah, and look, we need to, right? Like we need to have sovereign manufacturing capability, but it's also, a massive employer as well. And I think there's a lot, to your point before about how it's a team sport and we all need to collaborate together because, whilst we might be in different industries, I know even speaking at one of your functions is that, even Brisbane Airport Corporation, implementing automation that we're implementing. So there's a lot of cross sections there that we can learn from one another.
I agree.
All right, let's turn to the nightlife economy. So, we've got we've got the best dawn economy, right? Like one of the best things about Brisbane is like you can literally be up at 4:30 in the morning and go and have a coffee at 5 a.m.
When we are known as the earliest rising city in the world.
And I love it. I mean, I'm not the earliest riser in winter, but in summer I am.
Now I'm at 4:30. I'm 4:30 morning every
Day,
every
even
day.
if it's freezing. I
4:30.
know that impacts me. But anyway, and I know that John Collins sits on the BEDA board, is very heavily involved in the Nightlife Economy Commissioner. And he's branded Queensland's evening economy as the worst in the nation and that we need to fix it before 2032.
We got a lot to learn in the nighttime economy. He's doing a great job as the commissioner. But let's talk about the positives first, and then I'll address the issues. The Fortitude Valley is the largest live music precinct in Australia. And if you go in there on a Thursday or a Friday night or a Saturday night, I would argue that you are in a fairly active economy.
Yeah.
But the work that we have to do in that nighttime economy is extraordinary. Some people are saying, well, are we going to be a dawn economy or are we going to be a nighttime economy? I think we can be both.
Well, I reckon like instead of being a nighttime economy, it's just stay up all night and come for a party at 5 a.m.
Do meditation in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. Let's have espressos at 5 a.m. But espresso martinis versus espressos.
But it depends how you identify and classify the nighttime economy. So if you look at our restaurants, which we just talked about, they're full. Like I was down at James Street on Monday. I won't say the name of the restaurant. I want to give them a free plug, but it was packed on Monday night. And then I looked across at another restaurant. It was also packed. So that the foodie stuff's doing really, really well. Is that transferring to pubs and nightclubs? What BEDA is trying to do is create we haven't even talked about our work that we do in the major event space and the business event space. Major events like NRL Magic Round, when we had the British Irish Lions, when you see the Rugby World Cup, and we fight, tooth and nail to get those events here. And it's a competitive space where we bid and get them here. And we work hard because NRL Magic Round is an example, which we just locked in for 6 years. It was a really competitive process, but the reason why it's a competitive process is we've created a great event that makes a lot of money for the local economy. Yeah. Makes $55 million over 3 days, which is new money, not that's new money that's coming in. It's out of region money, and it's an extraordinary hit, right? So the more that we actually create a seasonal smoothing in our events, and that's where you're going to see BEDA and Craig Davidson and myself with the Lord Mayor and the Premier working together to create events every month.
Yeah, it's so interesting because the logic that you're applying is exactly what we do to our manufacturing facility, right? Is that smoothing, so you don't have the ebbs and the flows, and that you're consistently being able to deliver value.
Yeah, and so once again, one thing that I'm really proud of is we've created what's called the Brisbane Event Calendar. So all the major players now have access to it. And was once again, leave your egos at the door. Let's work together. So the CEOs of QPAC, Quargama, Powerhouse, South Bank, Howard Smith Wharves, Star, all working together. And now transport authorities also have access to that calendar. And what it shows when we first put it together was there's real gaps in the annual calendar. So we're saying to each other when we meet, let's get rid of those gaps. So, okay, May, great. We've got Magic Round. Next year we'll have Magic Round in May, but then in September or October we'll have the Rugby World Cup. So what are we doing in between with the Julys and the Augusts? That's why the Brisbane Festival is important, because then you've got River Fire, etc. But more importantly, it's about understanding how you can use that calendar to then leverage other great opportunities. So when British Irish Lions came, JC had access to that calendar. He knew 12 months out. So he then hunted the World Darts Championships.
Yeah, amazing.
Because Brits love darts. And so he had his facility full.
Yeah.
As a result of that, just being smart.
Yeah, that's super clever. Okay, so talk about the dawn economy then, because we've spoken a little bit about the nightlife economy.
Oh, the dawn economy. So we were delighted to see that Ebony Bott and Charlie Cush from the Brisbane Festival have really owned the dawn economy component as well as the nighttime economy.
Yes.
They've got it's literally an 18-hour day festival, but owning the lark, I call it the lark to the owl. I think owning the lark is something that we could really own as as a city. Recently, I was recovering from a bit of a health battle, so I took a break down on the Gold Coast, and I stayed at a hotel called the Mondrian. And as I was walking around Burleigh, 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, like it was alive. Like people were out there on their yoga mats, they were doing runs, they were walking their dogs, etc. And and as an economist, with running an agency, I'm looking at that and going, well, how do we actually capture that momentum and really turn it into other opportunities? And there are so many opportunities. Cafes can really evolve out of that. Foodies can really evolve out of it as well.
Yeah, but then you've got other linkages, like you look at LSKD,
Absolutely.
where they're doing some amazing things as well.
Yeah,
and helping to
we're
facilitate.
mapping all of that. So we get access to credit card data. It really is fascinating watching, what really creates spikes in credit card spend on an annual basis and then on a weekly basis, and really dissecting that data, and we can follow things through. And you can see that when Brisbane Marathon is in town, if you follow the credit card spend at that marathon and going down to Queen Street Mall and seeing what happens in LSKD, seeing what happens in Rebel, because others go, oh my gosh, I need to get my act together. Yeah. I'm sitting on the sideline watching people run. I'm going to Rebel and buying a pair of shoes. And you can actually, but you can actually see it.
That's fascinating, isn't it?
And we can track that data.
Yeah, right.
And we can prove that those events create spend.
So for businesses that are listening, can we access that data through BEDA? Like, how do we get the value from it as well?
Well, you can work with BEDA and we can tell you where that data is.
Yeah.
There are also businesses like Localis who we get a lot of assistance from. Localis, I think, are a great business that demonstrate, to a fee, they can give you access to what they see in that space. And it is fascinating. So I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah, good.
And this is going to because I was really surprised by this. Out of all the concerts that have come to Brisbane over the last 3 years, what do you reckon was the biggest credit card spends as a result of the concert? Because I was blown away, and I don't think you'll get it.
Well, the Edinburgh.
No, it's Luke Combs. So the
Why?
American country and western singer. Everyone came out of North Queensland. Everyone came up from New South Wales and Melbourne to see Luke Combs. I wasn't a believer. I thought this won't fill Suncorp Stadium. He filled it a couple of days. But everyone came up, bought their boots, bought their
The
country and
cowboy
western,
hats.
and the spend was huge
Yeah, of
around
course.
Brisbane. And then they're also enjoying themselves at the cafes, the nightclubs, and the pubs, etc. And we can track it. So beat Pink, beat Foo Fighters, beat others. So that's where it's really important to understand why data and analytics as an economic development agency is everything, and we need to understand what motivates people to come, spend, and stay.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Finally, if you had someone coming to visit Brisbane, where would you tell them that they must go?
Yeah, first of all, you can't do it in a day.
Yeah, stay longer.
Yeah. But you can't anymore. But that's the thing. If I say to you over 3 or 4 years, what's changed? People used to come into Brisbane, get out of Dodge, go to Cairns, Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, and fly out straight away. Now, perfect day for me, or perfect couple of days, and I'm actually planning this for a couple of people who are coming up from Melbourne. I'm picking them up from the airport. I'm getting them straight out to Stratty. So they landed, I think, about 7 a.m. We'll catch the water taxi across. And by about 8:30, we'll be going across to the gorge at Stratty, walking around that, seeing whales, breach, dolphins, manta rays, almost guaranteed. Fantastic surf, have a coffee down at Cylinder Beach, get back on. I'd then catch the water taxi back in, and I'd probably then take them to Mr. Purcell's for lunch, because I think that's a great view of the bridge.
Yeah, the Story Bridge,
Absolutely.
iconic.
Get on a 50-cent ferry, go around to South Bank, walk them around South Bank, and I'd probably finish the day either on the rooftop of Star, because I think that's got one of the best iconic now views of Brisbane, because it shows, if you walk around, it's 270 degrees, so it shows the river, Mount Keitha, etc. Or I'd finish with one of the great restaurants on the river. My favourite at the moment is Tillerman.
Is where?
Tillerman.
Okay, I haven't been.
Tillerman Seafoods.
Yeah.
So it's Andrew Baturo. He's got Neldham House. He's got Walters.
Right.
He's got
Okay.
Tillerman, Nagatai, all of those. But that's because I'd show off the Moreton Bay bug, because you can get the bug there and say, this is what you need for that.
Well, there's the sales pitch, for BEDA.
Yeah.
And Brisbane.
Own the bug.
Yeah, there you go.
That's it's not mine. It's Laurel Chitticky's on my staff. She's the one who says own the bug, and and she's right.
Yeah, I agree. I think it should be the Brisbane bug.
Yeah,
it rolls off the tongue
I
much
agree.
better than the Moreton
Well,
Bay
that's
bug.
that's what. Yeah.
But yeah, that's where we
Brisbane
need
bug,
to go.
yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Xanny. I've loved it.
Yeah, it's been an absolute delight.
Yeah, great.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Bite Size. We really appreciate all the support we've received. If you'd like to hear more incredible stories and amazing guests, make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Bye.